Okay, team. So today we're going to run through setting up cron jobs so that we can send notification emails to the owners of the projects every Friday at 5 p.m. And I'll jump in and show you what we're going to do. We're going to set up this email so we can populate with all the correct data for the owner's project and show how many likes, how many views it's had. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set up the cron job, which is going to run in the Australian time zone at 5 o'clock every Friday. We're going to fetch all the projects that have been created by the owner with notifications enabled and that have been published and have either had page views or likes. And then for each one of those, we're going to map over them and we're going to schedule another job, which is the weekly digest email. And what that one does is it generates an auth token that we can use to unsubscribe a user from notifications if they want to. We generate the email HTML and then we send the email. We use SendGrid to send that email. And then once that happens, inside of Inngest Cloud, which is really cool, you can actually see the logs. So the last one that ran, you can see it all happen, no errors, all completed. And then you can see all the different jobs that it's queued here. And you can see the output. And then if you wanted to, you could read the HTML and you can see everything that was generated. So that's what we're going to do. Let's dive in. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go. All right, so what I've found here is a little platform called Inngest. So what it can do here is it basically can run serverless queues, scheduled functions, webhooks, background jobs. And it's really cool how you can do step functions. So you can run one thing, wait for it, run again. You can wait a day, run something else. So very powerful. So today we're going to try to set this guy up and start delivering our emails. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set up an account. Now, once you've set up your account, I've got the onboarding script here to say, install the local dev server. So we're going to jump in and install that one. So let's just pump this up. Let's just do this, install that guy. What do we need? Yes, thank you. Now, just a quick refresher. So this is what we built last time. So if you jump into that video where we built the template, so we're using React Email to build this template. So we're going to send this weekly to all the people who have had views and likes to keep them updated. So let's go. All right, so we're running a server here. So we should be able to access this at localhost. Let's see what we have. Cool. So here's the event stream. So you can see as this, so I'm imagining we're mocking out the production environment just here. So we can see as events come in and how they get processed. Cool. So let's read about it. Okay, so we found the docs here for Next.js framework. So we're just going to follow along and see how far we can get. So the first thing here is still using the pages directory, not the app directory. So we can do this. So we can add an endpoint for ingest. So we'll jump in here to my 4x4. We're going to jump into pages. We're going to jump into API, I imagine, and then we're going to add ingest. So let's do that. Ngest.ts. Ingest.ts. Cool. So we'll grab this. Now we need to install, there's a piece missing here. We need to install this, I'm imagining. Quick start. So we run the server. That's cool. Add ingest. All right, so we need to add this guy. So let's add that to our project. So open another tab, create a new client handler. All right, so we'll do this. Chuck that in. Okay, create a client. So we're going to call this, the client name is my 4x4. Ingest next. I wonder if that is there. What is this guy saying? Ingest should be listed. This guy always gets us. So what we're going to do is let's quit VS Code. seems to do that often. Run it again. There we go. Cool. Set up a new client, name it, create an API that serves and hosts functions. So this is the client, and then once we add a function, we're gonna put it in here. So from the documentation, I'm gonna bump this up as well, so we can see. So yeah, when you get functions, we put them in here. Okay, so that's cool. So now we're going to write our first function. We'll add it in here. This is just a sample, so I'm definitely going to refactor this out, but for now we're going to just follow the instructions. So we're going to have hello world, test hello world, and it's going to have steps. It's going to wait for 1 second, and then it's going to return. So that's cool. And then what you do is you add this function to this array here, right? So all your handlers get listed in here. Cool, all right, what's next? Functions are called by events, functions can sleep, functions will retry automatically if they error. That's a very nice feature. So now we send the JSON event to ingest. So let's run this function. All right, so we run that, then head to that. We should see the following UI. Cool. So if we run this, okay, send event inside of here, and we're going to send this event. I'm going to hit send. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Next as well. Okay, we need the ingest event key, that's fine. Let's just restart the server just to make sure everything's good. So we do need to set that environment variable, that's fine. This is production, so we're not running in production now, so that's fine. Okay, so let's hit send event. No signing key provided to validate signature. Okay, so anyway, from what we can see here, we sent this payload, the event was received, and then hello world. So this is very cool actually, how this all works. I'm gonna push this window a little bit across so you can see it. I'll just bump this up. So we can see here, so the function started, the step waited for 1 second, then the step ran, and this was the output. So we got body hello world, then all the event, and then the function was completed. And then the real cool thing is you can replay, you can edit and replay, so you can really, it looks like it's very easy to debug this stuff. So we can see, so what have we done here? So you can see we're returning the event and we're returning the body, hello world. So that's exactly what it looks like here. We've returned the event and the body, and it's a status 200. So now what we can do inside of this function is we can actually, handle any logic that we need to do. So if it's send email, we'll have that sitting in here. And this is all running asynchronously. So our app will fire an event to ingest. Ingest will then call back to our app and run it in a different function. So you're not blocking the main thread, so the user's experience don't have to wait. But as long as this takes to queue, which should be milliseconds, hopefully, we can continue moving, and then in the background things can happen. Also, if we're going to set up a cron job, we can set up a cron job that runs weekly, and then this will just fire to our app, which will then run the mailers that we need. So that is very cool. So from here, we now need to work out how to refactor these, I reckon, so we don't have them all sitting in here. So what we can do, what I reckon, is we'll create a folder in here so that we can store these functions. So I guess we can call them jobs. I reckon that'll be pretty good. So we can call them server, db.trpc. We could probably, let's store them in jobs, I reckon. So we'll call that jobs. And what I'm just going to do for now is I'm just going to call this one hello world. And then from here, I'm just going to refactor this. And we're going to export default, hello world. We need ingest, so it needs the client. So we're exporting it from here, so that's good. So we can import that. So we can say import ingest. Great. And we're going to export hello world. Now what we can do is we can import hello world from not there, from jobs, hello world, and there. So let's now see if this still works. That's not right. It's got a dependency cycle. So maybe what we can do is we'll pull the client, the ingest client out. So we'll pull that into, where can we pull that on into? Let's pull that into here. Let's go ingest client. And we're going to move this guy to there. And we're going to move this guy to there. And we're going to export default. We're going to go in ingest. And I'm going to call this ingest client just because it's easier to know what we're working with here, because we're setting up a new ingest client. Now inside of here, we're going to pull in import ingest client, right? And then inside the hello world, we're doing the same. Right, and that's ingest client.create function. We've got ingest client, we've got ingest client, bang. Now let us refresh this guy. Let's send an event. We're going to grab that same event. And now just to make sure something is, just say hello world again. And we're going to wait 2 seconds. So let's send that. Let's go. Here we go. So the event was received. It waited for 2 seconds and then it ran. And then it said hello world again. Boom. All done. And it slept for 2 seconds. Very cool. All right, so we've refactored this a little bit just so that it feels a bit more maintainable in the long run. So separate out the client. We've got the ingest handler over here on the API, and then we import all our jobs. And what I will probably also do is I'll rename these things to, let's go like hello world job, because that way it's just easier to identify that these files are jobs. Great. It's cool. That's easy. Now, what I've noticed is we've got the mailers here. What I want to do is now set up I think we're going to call these templates, like this weekly digest is a template. So we're going to go mailers, and then we're going to say templates. We're going to move this into there. Now we also need to update our package. So when we had React email, when we run it, we need to go mailers/templates. Okay, because we're going to have mailer functions as well. Cool. So that's all good. So what we can do is we will reboot this guy, which never reboots properly. So we're going to go npm run dev email. Cool, so there's our template. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to use the render function in here. So React email render. So we need to install that by the look of things. Yep, so we don't have that. So let's install React email render, so that we can render out the email. Cool. Now we're going to create an email. So that's the template. Now we're converting to HTML. Okay. So what we want to do is we're going to create a new mailer function, and we're going to call it the weekly digest. And now we're gonna, just for now, we're gonna pull this in and we're gonna say templates / weekly digest. And this will be called weekly digest mailer. I'm actually gonna rename this to weekly digest email. So let's just, so I'm going to also change the casing of this. So we're going to say import weekly digest email. We'll move that up because that's a local. So we're going to import render from React email render. We're going to render that, which is fine. This needs props. Yeah, cool. Just a classic Ken stitch up. So need to be using the TSX extension because we're using JSX syntax here. So that's on me. So if we just quick check this out, run here again, and let us send the event. Boom. I can see some HTML. That's pretty cool. So that's what we're rendering out. But if we look at our event, I'm not sure why it's not showing up in here. Let's just see what this guy's saying. Identifier already exists for the run state. What am I doing here? It's because we've got an ID here. Yeah, okay. So there's a key piece. So if you send a specific ID, so what I was doing is copying this payload, which you shouldn't do. So it's got an ID there. It must have, if it checks for that ID, so it's obviously a unique ID. So here, this one doesn't have it. So if it has a unique ID, it just doesn't run. So we can see that in the console here. It says here, error scheduling functions, one error occurred, error creating run state, identifier already exists. And then it's telling us the identifier for that specific event. So that's fine, makes sense. So let's grab it again, and let's send it. There we go. So what do we have? Output, HTML, love it. Cool. So that's good. So now what we want to do, and we're getting a couple of complaints here because we're not providing the props. So what we want to see here now is we need to run the cron job, but then we also need to say, loop through all the users where the projects have had views in the last week. So we need to create a query for that. So I'm just going to note these things down. So the first thing is get all projects that have had views or likes in last 7 days. Yeah, so that's the first one. Then what we have to do is we have to also check. So we also projects must be published and created by owner. We also need to know, there was another thing. So the project must be created by owner. Also, we need to make sure that the owner hasn't like disabled these events. So we will add that. So we're just going to add that here just so we check that owner hasn't disabled notifications. Yeah, perfect. Good on you. Copilot, so to do. So we'll add that one in later. And then what we have to do is loop through projects and queue the email. Now the email queue does take a bit of time because we're using SMTP. So we have to see if we can do these asynchronously, so one at a time, rather than just try and like schedule one big job that just runs, because we're going to hit timeouts in Vercel environment. I think you get 60 seconds. So we need to make sure, if we have hundreds of these, we need to make sure we're just doing them one at a time. And I think you can do that with this fan out feature, possibly. So that's cool. So from here, let's dive into the next step. Just found a really cool thing. We'll add this in at a different piece, but look, so a really cool thing in Inngest is I've just noticed you can send an activation email. So when the user's created, send an email, then we can wait for another event. So this is really cool. So once the user has created an order, we can then do something else. Sorry, if they have created an order, we're going to skip this step. So this is interesting. So it's like someone signs up but then doesn't order. We're going to wait 24 hours and check. If they don't create an order, we're going to send them an activation email. Otherwise, we assume that's already been done. That's very cool. Just wanted to point that out. Here's a cool little thing. If you jump into your, so normally our app is just localhost 3001. If we jump into API/ingest, we get this. And it shows us that it's connected to the ingest server, this one. That's really cool. And your functions are set up correctly. There's the version. It's got the docs here. Tells us we don't have our signing key in dev. That's fine. And then it found one function, which is our hello world event. And then it automatically adds our app name, hello world. Let's just check that I haven't made that up. No, it does add that automatically. And then it's got the event. So that's really cool. So this is a really easy way to debug and make sure we've set things up properly. Love it. All right, so here are the docs. So what I was talking about is fan out jobs. So what we want to do with fan out jobs is we want to develop a complex workflow performing work for more than one object. So a group of users is exactly our use case. And we can achieve this by fan out. So this allows functions to call other functions which run in parallel. That's exactly what we want. And makes your workflows more reliable as each function has its own retries and will fail individually on permanent errors. That's also what we want because we don't want one email failing to stop all of them. And then provides insights. So this is very cool. So we're going to set up our cron job here. So this will be the job we're going to call this one. So we're going to call this the weekly digest email job. And let's grab this. Looks like they've done all of this in one file. So we just want this piece. We're going to continue importing our clients. We're going to import the ingest client. So we're using the one. We don't need that. Now, so this is going to be queue emails. Or we can just name it exactly the same thing here. So following the convention, I'm going to export it down the bottom here, export default, weekly. Yep, cool. Creating a new function. So this is going to be called weekly digest email. Now we need to get set up our cron. So if we just go to cron tab, we want examples. We want every week, every Friday, we want to send this email at 5 o'clock. So at 5 p.m. on Friday, every week, we're going to send this. So this is our cron here. And I think we'll do it in the standard with the numbers. Sweet. So I think they had theirs at 12, we got ours at 5. Let's just double check that. They haven't said. Cool, so this, I'm just going to comment here. So every week, every Friday at 5 p.m. That's what we want. Cool. So the first thing is here, this will be fetch all projects, right? And then for each project, send an event. We don't need to tell everyone what ingest uses. And then here we're going to say mailers. I'm going to call it weekly digest mailer. and then the data we'll pass in will be the project. So we're going to loop through all projects. I'm going to pass in the project, and I would probably pass it in like that. Cool. Projects is this. I don't think we need to do this. I mean, we can do this. So we can say get projects, and this will be a function where we'll get all that stuff. Then we're going to send all events to Inngest, which triggers any functions listening. Don't need it to do that. Return the number of users triggered. So that'll be projects dot length. Right? Okay, so we've got the weekly digest email job. Now what we want to do is we want to register that. Pages API ingest, and we're going to import the weekly digest email job. I'm going to shove that in there. Now let's go back to here. Oh, look at that. It's already got it. This is a nice tool. So we can see here, so it's added that there. It's a cron job. It knows that. It's got the name, and it's here, and we can hit trigger and actually see what happens. So that's very, very cool. Okay, so what next? So what we need to do is actually work out now how to get these projects. So what we're going to need in here, we're going to need our friend Prisma, right, to actually go and get these things. So now let's open up this function. So we're going to look for, look at this guy. That's interesting. Not quite there, Copilot, but good try. So we're going to look for const viewed projects. And we can assume if something's been liked, it's been viewed. That's pretty standard. So what we're going to do is we're going to go await. It's getting a little bit wrong here today. So it's project.findMany. Yes, that's good. Good start. Now this is going to be a bit tricky for me to write this, but let's give it a go. So we're going to look for, yeah, there's no such thing like that, Chief. We're going to say viewed projects is equal to Prisma project find many. Now, if we look at our Prisma schema, so project has project likes, right? So we've got project likes and project page views. So I'm just going to put these here for now, project likes and project page views. That's also something we'll need to look for actually in the future is comments, because that's the same thing. We want to look for those as well, but for now we'll do this. So we're going to say project page views. So, I mean, the first thing we want to check is that it's published, right? So that's definitely, and we also want to say created by owner is also true, right? So those are the two basic ones. That's easy. So what we needed to do here is just add into the where clause. Who would have thought? Project page views sum created at is greater than date. So that date will be the last. Now if we run that, we can see we're getting 4. So that is looking good. So what I did is ran the same query in the DB and just hard coded the values, and we're getting 4 here. So we had 12 views on the Ranger Next Gen, Raptor R1, 4 on the Hilux, 4 on the Land Rover. So that's looking good. So if we just quickly do a little test, if we refresh this, we got 5 there. Let's add another car. So let's go to one we haven't looked at. The Amarok. All right, now if we run this, Amarok. Cool. So it looks like we've got that query working. So that is that part. So we don't need, actually don't need the count at all. Cool. So the nice thing about ORMs is they abstract the DB away from us, but the bad thing about ORMs is that they abstract the SQL away from us. So after struggling with that one, came up with this. So we've got the where these two are true, or project page views or project likes are greater than 0, or greater than the date. Now I've just realized something. You cannot like a project at this stage without actually viewing it. So it's always going to have a page view if it has a like. But I'm going to leave it like this because in the future we may add the ability to like something from outside of the project. So as you're scrolling, you can just double tap it and like it. So I'll leave it like this, knowing that it would work. It would always have a page view anyway. So after we run our cron, we now get these 5 projects that were interacted with during that time. So I'm going to actually change this to, we'll leave it as viewed actually. So we'll leave that as viewed. Cool. So we now return viewed projects after that ordeal. So I want to remove these, fetch all projects that were interacted with in the last week. Thank you, sir. Okay. So we got the projects. And we are now going to loop through each one of those and run them through the mailer. Okay, so we've got the weekly digest email job. Now what we need is we're actually going to need to create, if we look at the fan out, we actually need to do the send. So this is the week we need to do the send. So we're going to create a new job now, which will handle that, because we need to call it here. So what is this one called? This one's just called name weekly digest email. And they've also done it similar like that. They haven't given an event name. Okay, so that's the event. This is interesting. So you return an object with a name that matches the event, but the name is different. So that is an interesting piece there for me. That's just create a little bit of confusion. Just want to call that one out. So what we can do now, so now we can say send, I mean, you know what we should do here actually? It's just we should say Q weekly digest emails, because this is a plural. Right, so I'm going to rename that one. And then we need to just update that. We also need to fix it in our Inngest server. I wonder if we should name these as well, so it's easy to tell what's cron and what's not. Because this is a cron job. Yeah, instead of calling it Q, let's call it cron. Cron, so that we can know that. We're going to call this cron. Update that. Thank you. Here we're going to have. Right, I just want to do that just for, I'm just thinking of maintainability. So that's the cron. Now what we're going to have is another job. We're going to say send weekly digest email job. Now this is singular, so this is going to handle one at a time. So we're going to keep Prism in here again. This is going to look more like this. It's just a function. It's called send weekly digest email. Cool. That's going to import there. So we can get rid of the hello world job because we don't actually use that anymore. And we're going to grab this guy. We're going to update this. Nope. All right. So we've got our cron job. I might even do this for just so it's easy to see. Sweet. So what do we do here? So we're going to say this is going to be called mailer. I like this kind of thing. So Do mail, let's just see what we had it called it here. So it was mailers / weekly digest mailer. So just make sure that we keep these names in sync. Weekly digest email, mailers weekly digest email. Okay, so we've got event, we don't want to sleep, we don't want to waste time. So what we can do here is we can await step run. I think it's nice here because it's just for like logging. So we can say await, we're going to say generate email HTML. And what that's going to do is going to return this. Right. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to, just for now, that for each project send the event. So we're going to go projects map. So out of here we're getting a full Prisma project. So we're going to go mailers and we're going to pass the data through and we're going to send the project in. So let's see, there should be data somewhere here coming out. I wonder if it comes out of the event. Let's console log the event. Let's see. I wonder if this is crashed because we've changed stuff. That's fine. Let's run this. Oh, this is actually our server. What am I doing? So let's restart it. Okay, that's just named wrong. Okay, yep. So this is send. Cool. Send weekly digest email. Great. All right. So now what we need to do is test the cron job. The cron job should trigger this event. So it's going to find all the projects that have had views. It's going to trigger this and it's going to send the data and the project across to there. And then we're going to get that back. Let's give that a spin. All right, before continuing, we actually need to set the ingest event key so that we can send events, bulk submit events here. So I've just set that up. You can grab that out of the ingest console and then just set the ingest event key. So we need to set that. And then what I'll do is I'll just restart this one. And then let's see if we can schedule this. So we can see that there's a whole bunch of events running here. We can see the output. So as soon as we add the key, this all starts to work properly. So let's refresh this page on our app. So the signing key we need to add for production. But now if we hit trigger, I'm going to open up here. And let's hit trigger. There we go. We can see it running now. And it's queued three different ones there. So that's awesome. So yeah, so we ran the cron job and then it took a couple of seconds. But we can see here, so we've queued the Ford Ranger Raptor Next Gen. We've queued the 2022 Volkswagen Amarok, and we've queued the 23 Land Rover Defender. And then all of these here, we can see we've got HTML output, which is the generate email HTML step. So if we jump into that and see what we've got, format that properly, there we go. We can see the name in here. So the weekly update, and then look, 2023 Ford Ranger Next Gen. That's not right though. For this one, that's supposed to be Amarok. Yes, you know why? It's because we're not passing it in. So where are we? Where's the project name, project title? And we've got using the default project because we're actually not passing in. There it is, default project. Okay, so that's not a bug. That is intended. So Cool. So the weekly digest mailer. All right, so now what we can do is we can actually pass dynamic data through. So we got this all running. What is interesting is why has it fired again? Oh, okay, I need to fix that. So at the moment, the cron job is actually being scheduled to run every minute. That was what we did for testing. So let's fix that because we don't want that to run. Where did we set that? Here. Ah, yeah, it's commented out. There we go. This is what we're doing. So we're busy sending it every minute. Don't want that. Let's fix this. We want that only at 5 o'clock on a Friday. Great. So that should fix that up now. We won't see those coming through every minute. We don't need to send the email every minute. That's good. All right. So let us pass through. So what do we got? So we're busy bulking them together. So we don't need this anymore. And then in the data object of the event, we're sending through the project. So now that's going to send us through to here, right? The mailer's weekly digest email, which is this job. And then in here in the event, we should have the data. It's probably going to come through here. Here we go. Here's the event. So no signing key, that's fine. But here you got the project object. We can see it through here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab, I'll just leave that console there for now, but we're going to grab outside of in the event. Ah, mate, that's Copilot doing its best work. So it's going to be inside of data project. So we're going to destructure it like this instead. Right? So we got the project here. So now we can log the project here. So let us trigger this. So now so with the weekly digest mailer, we have a render HTML function, but it's not taking in any props at the moment because we're just doing it straight through. So what we want to do here is I'm going to create a params object and I'm going to pass the project through, right? So we're going to do that. So that's the weekly digest mailer. Now if we jump into that again, so this render email HTML. So that's the first function. So now what we can say, so now what we've got here, we've got params. So we're going to say render email HTML params. And then we're going to get inside of here is going to be a project. And this is going to be a project type. And then what we're going to do is we're going to import the type. Is it project? Yeah, it's project from Prisma client. There we go. Okay, so params are defined, never used. That's fine. So we open this up. Right, and then we're going to pull this in here. So we're going to return render, but then we're going to say project is equal to params. Now what we can do is inside of this guy, this is expecting props. So these are the props that we're looking for. So inside of here, we want to render these props. So I'm just going to put them here just so that we can see what's going on. All right, so let's do this. Let's fix this, just tidy this up. Readable. Okay, so we've got day since creation, right? Then we've got generation date, similar new projects count, and user email. All right, so that's what all the props that we can expect. So for some reason, it doesn't look like this actually triggers anything. So that's interesting. Now what we need to actually do is we're gonna have to run some queries here. So yeah, for me, I'm struggling with the name. I don't like the naming of this one. So I'm just gonna call this weekly digest mailer, just so it matches that. And then let's change this guy as well. All right. So what we're going to need to do here is we're going to make this an async function. What we're going to need to do is we're going to actually have to import the Prisma client as well. So let's see, we've just used it in here. So let's grab this. Let's import Prisma. Now, so we've got the project, but now there's a couple of things we need to do. So we have to say days since creation. So we're going to have to find out what are the project days since creation. So how do we work that out? So we're going to need, so I'm just going to say const days since creation is equal, let's just do that. Generation date, so that's going to be the date now. So if we just say up here, we're going to say const, I think we did that already. All right, so we're going to say date, which is the current date. That's the date, that's the generation date. Right, so that's going to be current date. Then we've got the project. Now we need the project image URL. So we'll figure that one out. Const, we need the new like count. New view count. Total view count. Total like count. So we're going to have to run queries for those two. Similar new projects count. And then the user email. So that's going to be the project user. So we're going to have to, we will fetch this project again once we're in here just to get all these things. So the user email. And then I'm just going to set the variables here. All right. Got them. All right, let's just see. I want to just quickly pull up this console. I just want to go const date equals new date. We're going to go date to locale string. So let's just see what our email expects. 12th of May 2023. So let's just jump into date JavaScript. Jump to the docs. So we want to do, so we can set the options here. Okay, that's cool. So we can say to locale date string. And we're going to say undefined locale here. So that's kind of cool. So, I mean, let's see if we do this. 25 May 2023. So that's fine. That'll do. So that's going to be our generation date. To locale string. Boom. Nice one. New like count. Project image URL. So we're going to have to fetch this project. So we're going to say const. Let's go project. It's annoying because we've got a naming conflict. So we're just going to say project is equal to prisma.project.find unique. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say where, and this is ID is equal to project ID. I'm going to just call it init project because that's the one we're going to initialize with. And then this is the one with all the data that we want. Okay, so we're going to do interesting queries here. So we're going to see, we want to include projects users. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump into the stuff we've done earlier just to get all the syntax right. So if we've got TRPC router, projects. Okay, so we can see this is how we include the first user. So I'm just going to grab that. So we're going to grab the project user, we're going to include the user, we include the user image. Do we need the user image? Probably don't need that. So we'll just include the user, true. Then what else do we want? We want the likes. To do that, we can do count. And from here we can say project, do we have to say select? project likes, project page views. I think that's how it's, so if we look here, select posts true, so we get project likes, project, so that's going to give us our total like count, total view count. We've got the project user, so we can get the user email. Project images, so we need project images. And we're going to include, but we only want to include the first one. So let's just see how that happens again. So include user images order by that and take one. So, right, so we only want to bring one project image and we're going to sort. Cool, so we've got the project image now. We don't have this. So we'll do a separate query for that one. We don't have this, we don't have this. And days since creation. So what we want also, we'll get all the data from project. So the project will be when the created date. So we'll calculate that. So what we can do here, actually, we can call this project, and we're going to call this project with includes. That's pretty straightforward. So let's go console.log. Now we have to actually trigger this one. Let's restart my 4x4. See them there, and I can see them here now. Really, just a little restart. Let's try it again. So we'll grab this, send that. I can see that processed here. This guy's here. You can see we've got our event, so that means that event projects here. We've got the event, we've got the project ID, perfect. Now let's see what happened. Cool. So we're getting back HTML here. So what we can do is was logging this project with includes. So there it is. Yeah. Okay, so we need to await that to actually get our object. So that's cool. Let's run it again. Replay. Here we go. Null. Well, that's a mistake. That's a slug, not an ID. Cool. So what we'll fix that. That's a mistake by me. All right. So what we'll do is we'll just grab a project ID from the DB, just so we have one. This is the ID. Right. That'll work now. Let's send a new event. Send. All right. What do we get now? There we go, project with includes, done. All right, so we've got the ID, we've got the title, we've got the slug, we've got the description, publish, temporary user ID, created by owner, project images, project users, counts, project likes 0, project page views 39. That looks right, 0, 39, great. So that's good. So we've got the project likes and the project page views. So we can inject those now into our thing. So let's go here. So we're going to destructure this and we're going to just break this down. So we've got count and that's got project likes and project page views. Thank you, Copilot. So project likes is the total like count. So we're going to chuck that in there. I mean, I can even I'll cast it just for clarity. So that will be total like count, total view count. All right, so we got that, done. Now, days since creation. So that's going to be inside of the project and that will be the created at. We'll probably need a date time. Let's see if we can create a date. Dates are always fun to work with. Lots of fun. So let's go let's do this. We go const new date equals new date, and then let's paste in, and then we go new date. So that looks right. Okay, so we can just, when we initialize the date, we just pass in this string there. Great. So we can say, if we grab this is the created at, created at. And then we're going to initialize, we're going to say created at date. That's it. Thank you. And then what we want to say, days since creation is equal to, let's see, can you do this for us? Current date dot get time minus created at, let's see. This is where Copilot can really shine if it nails this. Okay, yep, that's fine. Sweet. Let's run this again. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to replay. What do we have? Days since creation, 20 days since creation. So this was created on the 4th at 2 o'clock. That looks about right to me. I mean, yeah, it's been 20 full days since creation. Perfect. So we've got created at. That's interesting that it's saying that. Neither does count. Okay, I don't believe you, but okay. Sweet, so we've got the project with includes, we don't need that anymore. Okay, we've got the generation date. So that's good. The new like count, the project image URL. Let's see if we can get the project image URL. So we're going to go to project images. It's called a key. We have to get the URL from ImageKit. So that's fine. That makes sense. So here's the image. So we don't have a URL. We've got a file key. Okay. So I'm going to call that project image file key. Replay. Let's see. There's our file key. Okay. So we've got our project image file key. So I'm just going to grab that out here. Yep. Good. All right. So we got that. So that can be taken care of. That one, the user email. So we need the user. So the user is this one. So we're going to say const user. We're going to need this actually as well when we send the email. We're going to need the user's email address. Project's user is not defined. Okay, that makes sense. So that's all right. So what have we got? Yes, our user. There's the email. Great. All right. So we got the user email or the project user. So we can grab the user email now. Is going to be project user dot email. Right, so we probably don't want to even send this if the user doesn't have an email either. Cool. So let's pass in the user email into here, which we've done, and let's test that. Just make sure we're getting that. I'm going to stick it there, and then we're going to replay. There we go. Done. Got it. Cool. User email's good. All right. So we still need to get new like count, new view count, and the project image URL. So what we're going to, I'll bump this one up to here so it lives there. So let's look at what we have to do. So inside of the weekly digest mailer, we need to get the project image URL. So what I've done here is I've imported ImageKit from my context, this one, so we can use it. And then we are then passing in the project image file key as the path so that we can grab that. And then we're applying a transformation because we don't want a massive image. We just want a 200 by 200 image. So we're grabbing that. And then from there, I'm just going to log it out. So let's see what we get. So now we can see we're getting this URL here. for the project image URL, which is exactly what we want. And then we load in the browser, that's what it looks like. So that's gonna be perfect. So we can now take this piece, and that is being passed through here. All right, so that's good. So now we've got the project image. Now the last three things that we need are these. So we now have to work out, how do we get a like count from a specific date, also the view count, and then also the similar projects count. So I think, I'm wondering if we even need that right now. There have been 4 new builds matching. I mean, that's just a count, so that'll be pretty quick. So what we want to do is, if we just have a look at our TRPC router, and this will be, where is that? This is going to be in projects, and this is going to be get similar projects. All right, so this is our current query. Right, so what we can do is, I'm just going to copy this code. And then inside the weekly digest mailer, we're going to say, so I'm just going to put the queries up here, just for ease of use. And this is going to be const similar projects. Right, so we've got const similar projects. We're going to say where. So we're going to, I'm going to use project with includes. So we're going to say where the manufacturer model is the same as the one that we've got, where publish is true, and where the ID is not our one. We don't need any of these includes, because we're actually not, we don't care about that. We're not going to have a limit. But what we do want to do is, we want to say where created at is greater than. So this is, I think, so yeah, so this is in its last 7 days. And I'm imagining that's 7 times 24, that's 7 days, so 66. All right. So the greater than that. So in the last 7 days, how many were there? But what we want to do here is, we want to count. That's all we want here, similar projects count. Let's see what that is giving us. Okay, let's run it. Okay, we need to await it. Always need to await here, because it returns a promise. So 0, there's 0 projects, so similar projects count there is 0. So I'm going to actually name it the same as this. And we get rid of this one. And just get rid of that. So then we've done that one. That's good. So that's easy. Let's pull that up there so it doesn't get confused. Cool, so we've got that. So there's 0. If there are 0, so similar new projects count. What we want to do is, if there are no similar new project count, we don't even want to build this section. So if similar new project counts is greater than 0, then we want to render out this section in the email. Otherwise, don't bother. All right, let's see. Okay, we've got to run the server. So we're going to go npm run dev email. Cool. So at the moment it says 4, but if we go here and we say, okay, now this is going to be similar new project counts as 0, it's gone. Now I'm actually thinking we probably should have a button there anyway, because we don't want to lose. So let's move this to here and make this a fragment and pull this in there, and then pull this up to here. All right, so just, we won't show the text, but we do want, and we want to change this. Where does that take us? This button takes us nowhere at the moment. It's the href. We need to fix that up. So let's go. What we want to do is inside the website, what we want to take you is to this search page, but we want to select the same model and manufacturer that you've done. So we're going to grab this, right, and that. Now this is going to be the manufacturer ID. So that'll live on the project. So we're going to go, it'll be the project, so we're going to go project.manufacturer model ID. And then this one's going to be, we're probably going to have to pass in the manufacturer ID here, I think. Right, so we'll pass in this LM. We'll set that to this for now. As default. And then in here we need the manufacturer model ID. There. Grab that. Stick that there. And that is a string. Where have we broken this? Okay, cool. Let's go back. And I think what we'll say, we'll change this word to just view builds. Now when you click that, it needs to take us to the base URL. Boom. With the thing selected. So that works perfect, okay? So we send you through view builds. And that's just letting us know how many. Okay, so actually I've made a mistake here. We need to put only conditionally wrap this piece, the new builds piece, because this is important information. Okay, your build has been on the site for 124 days in the time you received that. And then it's like view builds. Maybe we just leave it like that. View new builds. All right. I'll change it to view similar builds. Boom. And that'll take you back to the link. Cool. All right. So that's looking good. So the new thing that we do have to remember is to pass in this. All right. So we need to now pass in this one. So what I'm going to do is for the project, we're going to include manufacturer model, but we need to include the manufacturer. All right, so now what we can do is we can say manufacturer model, and then the manufacturer ID is going to be the okay, so we can actually just get manufacturer ID. That's what we want. So we don't have to include the manufacturer. We can just say include manufacturer model, because that will have the ID of it on there for us. Great. So we got the manufacturer model, manufacturer ID, got the project image URL. Cool. So we still need the new like count and the new view count. Const new like count is equal to await prisma dot project like count where project ID is that, and what we want to say is the created at is greater than or equal to. So what see, we keep doing the same thing here. So what I'm going to say is const 7 days ago. Let's see if Copilot can do it for us. Boom. So this looks very familiar now, doesn't it? See, those are all the same. So those are 7 days ago. So it knows what we're doing. So we're going to say greater than 7 days ago. Okay. That's going to be the new like count. Sick. All right. So we don't need that. And we don't need that. So now what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to go say new view count is equal to await project view where created at, yeah, it's like, you know what we're doing here, 7 days ago, and then the project ID, done. That's the new view count. All right. So let's just log this out. New like count, new view count. Let's run this. We should be there. Let's see, replay. What do we got? New like count 0. New. I mean, that makes sense because it's got 0. Where are you? Got 0 likes. Maybe I'll chuck it a like. I like it. Give it a little bit of like. So currently new like count 0, new view count 9. If we run this again, new like count 1, new view count 10. Manufacturer ID that. Perfect. All right, so that means that we have everything we need to return this HTML. So that's great. So that generates the HTML. So I reckon that's pretty good. So I think what we should do here, just for like, I'm basically trying to create a convention here moving forward. So this piece is the generate. This is going to be, we're going to export this, and this is going to be generate email HTML. And then what we're going to do here, I'm going to have another const, and this is going to be like send email, and this is going to be a function. All right, but the default's going to be to export this. No, it's going to do that. So what we're going to pull out here is the generate email HTML. So we're going to pull out. So the first piece is the HTML. That's the HTML step we're going to do there, and then the next one will be the send. So that's fine, we're not using send email now, because then we can define our send email function here. So maybe what we can do here as well is we can say here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to return an object with the HTML and data. This is so that any data we compute here, we can pass it through to the other side if we want to use it. So like the main one that I want to do here is the user email. I might even pass the project user through. So out of this, this is what we're going to get. So this is now going to be data, generate email data. All right. So let's see what that looks like now for us in our payload. Close this, replay it. What are we getting back now? So we're getting data, we're getting our project user. So any data we want to pass out now. Let me just pull this across so you can see it. So any data that, let's bump this up as well. So any data we want to pass through back now, we can. And then here's the HTML string itself, okay? So that's great. So now we're actually generating the email. So that's great, and we're getting the user here as well. So we can now take that user and pass that user out. So realistically, we're going to get out the project user and the HTML, and we're going to get that from generate email data. And I'm going to just pass them in like this now so we can see what we're getting. Here's the output. the event with the HTML. Oh, it's in the data object. Of course it is. All right. There it is, project user. We've got the email. Perfect. All right, next step. So the first step is generate email HTML. And then the next step is going to be send email. Okay. So now what we need to do is set up a mailer. Okay, so we're going to need to set up our email mailing system. So what I want to use here is I'm going to use SendGrid to do this. So I'll get those docs and we'll get it set up. Okay, so the first step here, we're going to install npm install SendGrid mail, and then we're gonna have to do a couple of other steps here. So let's run this npm. Okay, well, before we do that, we'll say inside of here we're gonna need to do SendGrid, and we're gonna have a SendGrid API key. All right, so this is in the ENB example. So what you'll need is a SendGrid API key, which you can register on SendGrid. So this is the service, sendgrid.com, and sign in and grab your API key. Okay, I've dropped in the environment variables. Now what we're going to do, I've just copied this code across for sending. So we're going to do this. We need to import SendGrid and set the API key. So we're going to do that. That's cool. So we're going to grab the SendGrid API key. Then what we're going to do here, this will be to the project user. So what I'm going to actually do here is we're going to send this to project user.email. And then the name and the from, this will be my 4x4. And then the email will be, we'll put in the my 4x4 email here. So it'll be like no reply at my4x4.info. Reply to, we won't have one. And then this is going to be called weekly update. And this is going to be for the, so I guess we could do something like weekly update, and then it's going to be 2023. Right, so that'll just be the project title. Okay, and the text, this will actually be HTML. Right, and that's going to be this. Okay, so what this next thing is here, so we need to just go, we're going to turn this into a step. Let's go const send email result is await step.run send email async, and that's going to be this. Okay, let me get rid of this for now. Let's see if this works. So generate, there we send. And what do we want to return? We want to return the project. We don't actually, yeah, we could keep the HTML there for now. We'll do that, and then the project. And let's put the send email result in there as well. Okay. Let us go and see if this works. Ingest, we're going to hit replay. So we've got an error. So we generated the HTML, we started an error, invalid status code 500, forbidden. So that's SendGrid saying that we're forbidden. So that's good, or not. So I reckon it's possibly going to be from here. So let's just restart this. Okay, so we're getting a 500 error from SendGrid, but we are getting to our step. So that's all right. So this just double check that's the output there. And then this one, I've set up the email. So this email is now working. So what we want to do now is we're going to refactor this step out of here. And we're going to put it inside of the digest mailer here. So we're going to return that. And we're going to pass in params here. And the thing, I think that what we're going to do here, to keep this simple, we're going to say the email and the HTML and the subject. So we're going to create the type here, send email params. Email is a string, HTML will be a string, and subject will also be a string. That goes here. Cool, so we need the SendGrid object, so we can grab that, and that will now live inside of our mailer. Okay, and then this will just turn into, we'll grab all these params, just so I don't want to lose them. So we're going to go send email. Put those in there. Right, and then from here we're going to grab this. Even just looking at this code now, we can see we can probably pull a lot of this out into probably a single method, because it looks like this is just going to be very generic. So it'll be to email, and the subject will be the subject and the HTML there. So this is very generic. This method here is super generic, so that we can pull this out. When we do the next email in the future, we can pull this method out into its own file. So that is there. And that's what we have now. All right, so SendGrid, that's not doing anything now. We pull that out here and stick it in here. Cut that, paste it in here. So it makes sense to create a send email client. Okay, so let's give that a spin. See what we get. So this is what we're getting back from SendGrid 202. Awesome. So that looks like that went. Let's check our email. There it is. And that's it. So we've sent the email. Got no new likes this week. The date of sending is the 25th of May. It's for the Amarok. Got 3 builds. The build's been on the site for 146 days. And in that time, it's received a total of 10 views and 1 like. And then we click view similar builds. And there we are. So that's it, I think. We now have, let's look at it, a job that runs Friday at 5 p.m. It calculates 7 days ago. It gets all the projects that we need or that have had likes and that were created by owner and published. We then loop through those and we fire off events to send those emails. Each one of those jobs runs here. We generate the email from here, and we get all the data we need and we inject it into our template. We then send the email, and return. And that is job done. So I'll have a look again a little bit closer and just see if there's anything that we're missing. But from there, actually the next steps that we need to do is we need to add in the ability to unsubscribe. So we'll do that in another video because that's about handling notifications. And what else was there? We also needed to check that the user had an email. So what we want to do, if we just quickly say here, if we go, we'll need to do that because it will be the first user. So we'll check that here as well. I mean, we can probably do that in here when we're mapping through. So we can filter the projects out that don't have a user, but that's on the side piece. But other than that, we've now set up using Inngest, cron jobs, and a worker to send the job, and away we go. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and catch you on the next one.